Welcome everyone to another Into the West video. I'm Charles. With me today are Richard, Ian, and we have a guest. It is Andrew from Tabletop Admiral. And today we're going to be talking about the top 10 most played armies.
It's all just a popularity contest.
Tabletop Admiral's the most popular MESBG army building app. We're going to be talking about some stats, breaking down some numbers, and talking about which armies are the most popular right now.
This is also as of January, end of January 2025. So it's still only like a month and a half of data.
So, Andrew, for those who don't know, can you kind of just briefly summarize what Tabletop Admiral is?
Yeah, so I guess primarily it's an army builder, technically a modular army builder. So, you take in a game file and yeah, it'll spit out an army builder for you. But kind of expanding it, as we'll talk about today, you can record your match results, put in your list, your opponent's list. Then you have a nice stats page to show you like what armies you're winning the most with, losing the most with, what heroes you're winning with, losing with, your win rates, things like that. And then, of course, that gives me and us fun data to look at on, what's doing well, and we can draw unfair conclusions based on it. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. And then there's also a tournament map. So, I'd love for more people to put their tournaments on it, so people can find tournaments, because I was always frustrated. Like, I got to look in 8 different Facebook groups to see where the tournaments are, or be in a weird Discord group or whatever. Now I can just, they're all in one place, ideally. And then you can also attach your recorded games to tournaments. So we'll get tournament stats eventually that way. So yeah, but it's a lot of things is the short answer.
I really like the tournament feature because you can add basically your league to the tournaments as well. So I think right now a lot of it is like North American based, but you're getting some European tournaments as well. And yeah, I think it's a great format too. I've been encouraging the local TOs to add theirs here because it's a physical map of the world. So, if you're traveling somewhere as well and you want to go to like an MESBG event, like that's the perfect place to look.
I don't have a lot of reports for specific leagues or tournaments yet, but once we get a lot of data for so and so league, I'm going to start making a page where you can view all stats specific to your league. So basically everything we're talking about today, but for your league, that'll be on a page you can look at anytime. And just encourage people to use all those tools. There's no reports now because there's no reason to, but there will be. Like that's the goal, is to just give people cool information. And it's just a lot of fun and something I've always wanted for every game I play, and it's definitely missing for MESBG. So I'm trying to solve that.
This is a little bit off topic, but this app is by far my favorite out of all the army building apps because it's so easy to build lists and save them. It automatically tells you if you're over the bow limit, if you're over like a warband count or something like that. So I find it really easy when you're thinking about an army and you want to quickly put together a list in like a minute. It's so easy to do. So
yeah, thanks. That's why I made it, because I made it because I started playing the game and I was like, there's nothing, I can't use the ones that were available to me at the time, so I had to make something. So glad you like it.
Definitely go check it out. Also, Andrew is part of the Now for Wrath gaming YouTube channel as well. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sorry for the promo hour, but yeah, we're just a YouTube channel. We do bat reps and do some kind of chat videos where we give our takes or explain how we feel about certain things. But yeah, primarily bat reps, kind of tightly edited bat reps, so no more than 40 minutes ever, despite our games being 3 hours. So if you like kind of a playing along with us, it's always just me and Steve, and we're good friends. So if you like seeing 2 friends play the game together, and we're semi-competitive, I won't claim we're the best players in the world, but probably second and third best players in the world. So yeah.
I do quite like your battle reports. Just like you said, like they're tightly edited, and then also like the little discussion, like the tactical discussions as well, is kind of like having that edited in is nice, like to get an idea of like what your thoughts are and what's going on. So yes, I do quite enjoy your bat reps.
Before we get started, just want to shout out our patrons over on Patreon. Thank you all for supporting us. If you want to see extra content and check out our list of perks, please see the link in the description. A special shout out to Ragin Ridge 83, the top supporter of the channel. Also, we have a Patreon promotion going on right now. All patrons, after supporting us for 1 month, you get a set of custom Baron of dice that has the Into the West symbol on them. So for more information on how to get them, also you could see more in our description. And just to shout out Baron of Dice, they make some great Middle Earth strategy battle game dice as well as dice for other games. You can use our promo code WEST for 5% off your order.
I guess before we jump into reviewing the data, a few caveats that Ian already kind of mentioned. Andrew, feel free to jump in whenever. It's pretty early days for the website as well, this feature. So I believe we're at around 1,000 games in your database.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, just hit 1,000 before I send it to you. Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously take it with a grain of salt. I think the armies we'll be going over today are roughly like 50 to 100 games played. So we think there's some things to it, but yeah, obviously if something looks really off, then that's probably the reason.
Is there an Isengard skew we're gonna have to talk about?
Yeah. Okay, let's start at number 10. So yeah, we ranked it by the most games played here to look at the stats. So there's 54 games of Fangorn with 27 different unique players. And then this middle pie chart here is just the total win, loss, and draw. Pretty straightforward. And then down here, these rings are the win, loss, and draw based on each scenario that they're in. So we can see how they perform, how this army performs in a given scenario roughly. And then also this little table here is the average points in a win and average points in a loss. So this is to kind of show just roughly what level of points are they optimal in and what points levels they kind of struggle more in.
So for this, it's probably 500 and 600 points. Is that right? That's what everybody's taking it at?
Fangorn probably doesn't have as much variety as a lot of the other lists and points taken, but yeah, the average points in win and average points in loss are pretty close in, I think, all of these. But most of these that we'll talk about today, the armies, I checked before this, most of them, the armies did better at 600 or less than at more than 600, which is kind of interesting. It's basically just a quick, are they doing better at lower or higher points? And in this case, lower, I guess. But
Yeah.
big grain of salt, though.
Yeah, it is pretty close. So I think this one is still to be determined. I think there will be others coming up that there's a bigger discrepancy that, maybe we can put a little bit of weight into that these lists might be better at lower points, for example.
I think it's crazy what the new dominant rule does for armies like this. Because if you just imagine this same list last edition, I'm pretty sure Hold Ground would be all red.
Domination would be all right.
Recon, yeah, Recon would be all red. And Fangorn definitely wouldn't be 10th.
Yeah, hold ground too. Like that, they're almost hitting 50%, which is wild.
Well, if you think about it now, yeah, I would not want to play against Ents and Hold Ground. It seems really scary. Like unless you table them or like just kill them really quickly, you might really struggle. So looking at some of these rings, like to the death, I think it makes sense that it's straightforward. You're killing, and they're shooting their rocks and stuff. That's pretty scary. And yeah, it seems like they probably struggle the most in destroy the supplies
Yeah.
and domination.
I think that one makes sense, right? Destroy the supply. Like they're not gonna have enough models to be able to stop people getting behind to destroy having their own destroyed, and they're not gonna have enough models to be able to get in and destroy supplies. So that one makes sense. Domination, I guess, same kind of thing. It's just hard to contest more than like 2 or 3 objectives by the end game, even with dominant. Dominant's great, but if your opponent has 6 models left on and they're spread out on 3 objectives and you're on 2, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. They're also missing the banner for destroy the supplies.
Yeah,
that's
that is
big.
a big one.
They're just eagles without wings, unfortunately.
Yeah, but they're much tougher. I will say I am pleasantly surprised that they are pretty close to 500 here, equal win and equal loss. It shows that they're very playable. So yeah, very cool.
The stat with the unique players being about half of the total games, I'm interested to see if that's like an average or if it's high compared to other armies on this list.
I'm gonna guess it's high because people are seeing it going, ooh, monsters, and just trying it out because previously you'd have four ends sticking around that you never used. So I at a guess, that's probably it. I think you're probably gonna see a similar kind of thing, maybe with the other like monster heavy lists, but that's just speculation.
I'm glad you can sort of seriously take them to a tournament now. Just I wouldn't want a five model list to be super dominant in the meta, but I'm glad it's like worth considering, or at least you can have a good time and expect to do at least okay. And that's all I would have wanted out of a new edition. I think is make things like Ints decent.
Yeah. It's a good start. Number 10. Going on to number 9. Riders of Aylmer with 55 games and guess what? 37 unique players, which, this was off air, but Andrew, you were saying one of the armies that you were quite interested in.
Yeah, I like them a lot. I've played them a few times, and they're -1 on the duel for a turn is just big. They just hit hard once, uh, hopefully more than once. But you get one big turn to make something really big happen, and it's just a lot of fun. And AMR is great. 2 12-inch horses on your big heroes. It's just it's got a lot going for it.
I'm also gonna guess that part of this is the fact that AMR is good now and Gandalf the White is good now, and everybody's like, ooh, let me play.
Yeah. I mean, Aylmer is extra good in this army with the free hero combats. I guess just for our listeners, it's 26 wins, 27 loss, and 2 draws, with an average points and wins at 658 points and average points and losses at 639. So a bit more of a gap, I guess, compared to the Ents, which kind of makes sense that it probably skews a little bit higher. It's showing that probably the average wins are at least maybe 700 points.
Yeah, I mean, it hinges on 2 big heroes, so you're already spending a lot if you take them both. So it makes sense that at lower points, it's maybe not doing amazing.
I'm gonna guess that there's been one game of recon and two games of destroy the supplies here.
One of the games that destroy the supplies was me. I faced them with Army of the White Hand, and I'm responsible for that loss, I think.
But
Yeah,
yeah, the other scenarios look a little bit more interesting. Like there's actually been a decent number of them done.
even if we had a bigger sample size for recon, I think it's still going to be a mostly green one.
Mhm.
I mean, all Cav army, like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Two 12-inch move heroes. Ugh,
And just the control you get with having like a command caster too.
no,
Yeah.
no command.
The white Gandalf White doesn't have command either.
No.
Not anymore.
I thought it was just the gray that lost it. Okay. I mean, but still he's good defensively, right? Just
So,
with the like immobilize or sorcerer's blast anyway.
so there were two games of recon,
Oh,
average points of 700.
So I'm a little bit surprised that it didn't do too well in To the Death. Maybe people are still trying to figure it out, or maybe they aren't playing it to like its max potential. Because unfortunately, I think as cool as this list is, if you want to play ultra competitively, you probably are kiting a little bit before going in. If you're doing like just the death charge, I don't know. I don't know how many games you're gonna win.
so I've only played against this list once in the last edition, but it was in like to the death, I think, or something like that. And yeah, the list does kite remarkably well because at minimum they're moving five, even though their hit value is bad, but they have the blinding light as well. So it's just and like a ton of bows. So it's a very slow grind with their shooting, but it does grind you down. And then that big devastating charge they can get in is, it's just they just wait until they have a good opportunity to do that. So I'm also kind of surprised that they're not like more than half into the death, or at least at half, but I don't know.
But
You
maybe a
can
lot of
charge
friendly
in.
games where they don't want to be the guy that just kites around their friend and shoots them for an hour before they actually fight.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Maybe once we get that tournament filter,
Yeah,
that To the Death green bar will go up.
yeah.
Also, that's really interesting is Fog of War having like only about a third win rate. That's interesting. I would have
Well,
thought they'd be able to
I think
like,
Fog of War is a little bit tougher with lower model count armies. Like, yes, the all cav is good, but I have played like against like Riders of Thedan in Fog of War and armies like that. The mobility is good, but yeah, you have to play offense and defense, right? And if you're low model count, it gets tough.
yeah, I guess I was thinking more like late game making plays for stuff. Yeah. But to be fair, holding terrain, if a lot of the terrain pieces are like woodland or something, then you're kind of screwed because like it really limits what you're going to be able to pick to capture and then trying to defend them as well.
Surely you can keep Gandalf alive though, so there's 5 points.
That's true. He's a great
But
leader.
Well, no, because Aemir has to be the leader though, right?
yeah, he'd be your keep. Gandalf
But
would be your
he's
Oh,
keep
right.
alive in
yeah,
Fog of War.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
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 But
Yeah.
still, like, yeah,
Yeah.
he's pretty good to easy to defend. And then assassinating heroes too, because you have the immobilize and like the 2 fight 6 heroes. Yeah. It's interesting.
Most wins in this edition are by a pretty big amount of VPs. So 5 points. You need a lot more than 5 points. It seems like the average difference in VPs from the winner and the loser is like 10, which is kind of crazy.
Are we going to get stats on that as well?
Anything you want.
You heard it here first. Andrew can get you anything.
Yeah, anything. I don't know how to say no.
You better add him on Discord right away.
Yeah, everyone.
Going to number 8, we have Rivendell, also with 57 games, but with 31 unique players, with a score of 34 wins, 21 loss, and 2 draws. Average point in a win, 593. Average points in a loss, 648. So, yeah, some interesting stats here, guys. What do you think?
I'm curious what the hero stats are for taking in this. I'm gonna assume that Elrond and Arwen are in the majority of the lists, like the combo of the two of them. But yeah, the points difference is very interesting. So it's also kind of makes sense generally for elves. They do better 600 plus, especially if you're taking an almost 200 point hero.
No,
That
no.
makes
So,
sense.
so you're reading it wrong. It means
Oh,
that,
I read that wrong.
yeah, they're dominating
Oh,
in lower points.
interesting. So I guess yeah, Arwen and Elrond with like roughly full warbands is probably around 600 points, maybe 650. And then once you get above that, like 700, 800, it kind of gets a little awkward adding in an extra hero. Like all you get is an extra hero and a couple bodies. So maybe that does make sense.
Yeah, and I think your choices for third hero aren't amazing. So once you're being forced
Yeah.
to do that, it's kind of like, eh.
Interesting.
So it looks like best scenarios are domination and destroy the supplies.
Yeah, which is also surprising because you usually don't see that with elite forces and elves.
Is this more people taking more Rivendell Knights?
Do we have stats on that?
They exist. I don't. I'd have to run some calculations
Yeah.
next time.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just like you have to like get close to areas like in domination you're fighting like close in an area, destroy the supplies, you're fighting close to objectives. And if a bunch of models are bunched up together, you have two nature's wraths, maybe it's a function of that. It's harder for people to spread out. I don't know. But domination, you still well, I don't know.
Yeah. So
It's
I think
interesting.
what is a bit scary about this list is that to me, they should be pretty good at hold ground and even more so into the death. So if those stats get bumped up, they already have a crazy win rate, and I could see it actually getting pushed a little higher. I mean, like elves into the death is just, they're always going to be good. And then hold ground, if they can deploy properly, because they're a bit more on the low might side, but if they can deploy like kind of together and they can get to the middle, yeah, that's going to be a tough army to beat as well. Andrew, any experience with or against this army?
I haven't played them yet. They're definitely on the list of armies I'm interested in. I even in the last edition, I was kind of a contrarian believer in Arwen at least a little bit. I thought she was at least decent, but she definitely got some buffs and she's pretty good value. So yeah, especially like just 600 and less, I think it's pretty solid. They'll run an Arwen, and the army bonus doesn't blow me away, but it's a fun thing if you do get broken to cause a wave to come. But
One
yeah,
observation I wanted to make was that I believe in this new edition, you can't use foresight points in Maelstrom anymore. So I'm wondering
Oh,
if,
is it because he's not on the board?
yeah, yeah. So I'm wondering if that's impacting the hold ground stats because typically foresight helps you a lot in Maelstrom before.
Yeah, I guess it really comes down to if they can just come in together.
Mhm.
And
It's a low might army, right?
yeah.
So
And you really need those points of might. We talked about like the spells, right? The Wrath of
yeah,
Brunnen. A lot of times you want to actually channel.
yeah. And so that might has a lot of uses, and you don't have a lot of it.
I think overall, I guess, yeah, with this limited data that we have, this is a nice surprise because I don't know. I think to me, previously in last edition, Rivendell, aside from all Rivendell Knights, it was a little bit lackluster compared to Lothlorien or Mirkwood. So that's really cool. Okay, moving on to number 7, Muster of Isengard. Charles, you want to go over the the stats we see here?
Yeah, so we have a total of 58 games with 44 unique players, and the win losses we're sitting at 37 loss, 19 wins, and 2 draws. The average win points is 667, and the average loss points is 697.
not a lot of repeat players. 58
No.
games, 44 players. You know, I guess the results might be a reason for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder which way it goes. Is it because there's 44 unique players that is a low win rate? Or is it, yeah,
Yeah,
people realizing it's not good?
yeah,
People want to try the Fight 5 Berserkers, and then after one game,
Try
they
it
move on to
once.
something else. Once was enough.
I mean, I still think the army is good though.
me too.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it's just harder than it seems to pick up because I have yet to play this.
I
Maybe they decide to play another Isengard army instead.
just yeah, it's interesting. The only ones that it gets like gets close to being a half win rate is domination, destroy the supplies, and fog, which are all kind of ones you want to spread out in a little bit, which you wouldn't think for like an elite army. Maybe it's just the quality of the troops that kind of does it. I don't know.
And another thing I find a little bit surprising is I expected the uh, win average points to be higher. I would think that this army would be weaker at lower points.
Hmm.
I mean, 697 I think is the highest that we've seen so far. So it is on average pretty high. There's probably a couple 800 points in there.
Hmm.
Might be a similar thing to the Rivendell list we were just talking about, where it's like you get Saruman, you get a captain, and maybe Greenman, you get to around 600, 650, and that's where people are just capping out. And then above that, it gets kind of awkward to add in warbands and stuff. I don't know. Basically, 75% losses into the death is kind of wild to me, though. Do you think it's just getting outshot?
It's the only thing I can think of on paper. I feel like this army's pretty good. I don't know if the
Yeah.
current scenario pool just punishes it a bit, or the Saruman not getting rerolls and not getting. But I don't know, his special rule with the -1 is pretty nice too. But I'm not sure. I talking with my friends about it before anybody got to play anything. Everyone thought this was at least pretty good. Same with another one we're going to talk about later that I'm just surprised is doing so poorly.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it seems like, Uruk-hai got the buffs with the shield wall, Berserkers with the fight 5. It's not like the stuff took a hit, right? Yes, the only thing
Right.
is like Saruman, but Grima got better. That kind of offsets a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it is kind of strange.
We'll see. We could be the change we wish to see and take it to the
Yes.
top.
I am thinking about taking it to the next TTS tournament, so I'll report my stats,
Yeah.
TTA. Hopefully brings it up. I will note when you said the scenarios as well is unfortunately like I love the army bonuses, especially the one that gives March for the captains on the first turn. But, you know, it doesn't actually work in hold ground and reconnoiter or any maelstrom, right? And unfortunately, right now, two of the six are maelstrom deployment. So you're essentially losing out on a full army bonus.
Pretty rough. Your army bonus doesn't work in a third of scenarios.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, the Hatred Men is very good. I think right now we have probably, yeah, like a good amount of the armies are men. So yeah,
I think you could in a 5 game tournament, you could like reasonably expect that to be active in 2 of your games.
yeah.
Yeah, just in hatred is like we know, like it's pretty freaking good when you get it.
I guess it sucks if you're not playing against men and you're playing hold ground and reconnoiter.
When you are and strength 4 +1 to wound on
Yeah,
everybody, that's pretty grim.
yeah,
Berserkers +2 to wound.
yeah. You're killing stuff for sure. So going to number six, we have Reclamation of Osgiliath. 63 games with 51 unique players. So that's a lot of unique players there. 34 wins and 29 losses. Average points and wins 666. Average points and losses 633. And yeah, it looks like it's doing not so great in domination, hold ground. Hasn't won into the death,
0000000.
but it's
Which is
performing in destroy the supplies, reconnoiter, and fog.
I'm curious how many to the death games there are there. It can't be that many, right?
The caveat applies extra to getting down to very specific things. Like we cut our stats and by 1/6 for each of these, so not a huge sample size for the buy scenario thing. Doesn't mean it's not fun to look at, but yeah.
And I think again, it's probably getting outshot in those few games that we have
Mm,
recorded. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's bad in combat. The +1 to wound like is crazy. Boromir on the +2 to wound.
yeah.
We have 4 games of to the death recorded so far.
Ooh, that's
That's
more than
higher
expected.
than I thought. Yeah. I think the points win and like points for losses. So the wins are probably mostly in the 700 points, and then the losses mostly in 600 points. Then, so I'm curious what the difference in the build is there. Is that like getting the captain in there as well at 700, or you just max the warbands? Because I would have figured you'd max the warbands at about 600 points with the two brothers.
Yeah, the two
Yeah.
brothers alone are 325. Yeah, assuming you take them fully kitted out.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the extra captain because I mean, I haven't played with this list yet. I have played a game against it. The issue is that Faramir and Boromir have to stick close together to kind of benefit. So the extra captain, I guess, allows might and a bit of a presence like on a different part of the
Hmm.
line or a battle.
The march to get like when you got to maneuver because you don't really. Well, I guess do you throw a lot of cav in this list? Probably not.
Probably one or two, right?
Not like 6, right? Or 5 or 6, right? You only go for a couple. So captain getting in there and being able to march maybe helps.
So captain's the same points as Madrill. Do you think most people are going the captain?
Oh yeah, I
Oh,
mean
probably
Madrill is the
Madrill.
take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Forgot he was in the list. Yeah. Especially, well, he definitely helps in recon. I'm kind of surprised hold ground though.
Well, like you said, maybe hold ground. Those losses are like the lower points where Madrill is not taken.
That's true. Could be.
I think it's a pretty cool list. This is probably the most reminiscent of the old Minister with the banner. I think it makes sense. This is one of the most popular lists. Not only in total games played, but like just a bunch of unique players, people trying it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, a lot of people probably have these models, even new players, just from the starter kits they got in the past or recently. Or
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Minister is a pretty common first buy for people.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And there's that new start, well, newish starter set that just came out like 2 years ago, right? And perfect base for this army.
Yeah. I would make a guess and argue that this might be even farther up in the ranks in a live event. I guess depending on where you are. I think in North America, we're going to see quite a few of these armies.
Yeah, definitely.
Are these stats a mix of live games and Tabletop Simulator or just Tabletop Simulator?
Live and tabletop simulator. I mean, anyone can report their game, so
Okay.
no restrictions. I can't stop someone from lying either, so there's another caveat. So maybe someone's poisoning the muster of Isengard data and reporting losses so nobody else plays it.
Some Grima propaganda, if you will.
Yeah. Or they want to buy Isengard for cheap, so they're making it look really bad so they can get some eBay sales. That's actually smart.
Yeah.
Big brain time. I love it.
And I have a lot of control over this, so I'm actually going to start adjusting armies that I want. Ents are 0 and 60. Please sell them.
All right. Going into our top 5. The Depths of Moria. So 64 games, 44 unique players, 36 wins, 23 loss, and 5 draws. Average points and win, 664. Average points and loss, 671. Yeah. I think mostly green bars here. The only one that is like heavier on the loss is To the Death.
Maybe because they don't have a banner. Probably a big, like a decent factor. And
That's
but you
probably
can't-
the biggest one, yeah.
you
But
can't break them without
Right.
going after the Balrog, right?
Yeah.
That's
The
interesting.
surprising part to me, yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of points sitting on the Balrog. You gotta like get him down to half wounds and get through a bunch of D9 to actually get wounds on the leader, which is hard. So I'm curious why that one's worse.
So is it showing that even in these early days that, the buffs to the heroes and other monsters potentially makes the Balrog a bit more vulnerable? Like obviously he's a monster and he got the buffs, but
Yeah.
his stat line didn't really change.
Could be. Could
Maybe he
be.
faced LSR in every one of those losses.
Conversely to that, the 75% win rate and hold ground makes sense to me because you have a dominant 10 monster and you just need to get him in the middle, and it's going to be like so hard for your opponent to overcome that. As soon as he gets in the middle, like, what do you do about it?
Maybe the losses are Watcher in the Water lists.
They do not exist.
Or other Balrog lists.
Watcher in the Water is perfect. You park him on the middle and hold ground, and nobody else can get in there because the base covers the whole thing.
I think this is one of the hardest armies to deal with in the game right now. It's just every time I think about facing it, I'm like, I'm not going to break them ever. Like, you can hope they whiff their dual rolls, but they have to do it like 4 times in a row for you to actually break them. So it's just tough, unless you're LSR.
Yeah. To the point to breaking, yeah, of course, like the Balrog is hard to break, but now that I'm thinking about it, the first tournament that we went to, Ian, there was someone who took Depths of Moria, but no Balrog and no Watcher. So it was 700 points. He had 2 cave trolls and like 70 goblins. So yeah, he wasn't breaking much in that tournament anyway.
Honestly, the cave trolls are also scary in that once you get like 2 or 3 of them around, because they also have dominant 3. So they're good at just sitting on objectives and blocking things out.
And then just global banner on like 70 models. Oh, come
Yeah.
on. That's-
Solid.
Yeah. Well, I guess the To the Death losses make a little bit more sense in that regard because they just have to go at the enemy. Right? Like you don't really have any shooting, you move slowly. You kind of just forced to go at them if they have a banner. So I wonder if those are just smaller point wins where they just protect their banner and their leader, and then the goblins just can't catch up in time.
That makes sense. I mean, the average points in win and loss are, I think, close enough that it can eventually swing either way. I would say it's pretty even. So at least we know that it's being played the most around that 650 to 700 range. So going to number 4, our first
Good.
Hobbit army, the Halls of Thranduil. 64 games with 45 unique players, 42 wins and 22 losses. Average points in a win, 654. Average points in a loss, 661. So about the same there. Yeah, it's seems at least decent in most scenarios. Incredibly dominant record in Fog of War, which nothing has changed. They have Legolas. What do you guys think of this army? I know Ian has played this one.
So what are the banner snares? It's to the death, destroy the supplies, and what's the other one?
Heirlooms.
Isn't
Oh, we
there's
don't
only two.
have heirlooms.
There's only two in this pack. Okay. I'm a little surprised it's that dominant into the death. Like it's got good shooting and stuff, but just missing out on 4v is it 4 VPs in that one, right? Right off the bat is difficult. So that's a pretty dominant win right there, despite that, which is interesting to see.
I guess over the course of the game, Legolas can eventually probably snipe the enemy banner and equalize that a bit.
In some ways, he is kind of better at sniping banners. I know I had one game where someone was approaching with their in their line and they had their banner like touching another model, but because I had the triple shot on a 2+, I killed the guy that was, touching the banner first, and then I went for the banner after, even with an additional in the way. And I had to burn all my might, but I was able to take out the banner the first turn. So I think there's some more plays in that way.
I mean, I guess overall, I'm not surprised that they just have a really big win rate right now, just because of all the buffs that the list got in general. Like it didn't really take a lot of nerfs, and you can still get decent numbers for an elf list because you don't have to spend the points on the banner and stuff, and your heroes are relatively cheap at these kind of points values. So, yeah, most of the time when you face a horde of elves, they tend to do well.
I mean, great shooting is definitely good nowadays, and they've got that for sure.
If they did have a banner, this would, for me, probably be a top one or two army in the game. So maybe that was a good balancing decision. I know it was not intentional because there's no model for it, but let's just call it a balancing decision.
I'm interested to find out if this is the top list with Legolas, because he's in so many lists.
There's a
I
lot
mean,
of legless lists.
Yeah,
I, I, I
I'm
would,
just curious which list people are going to try him in
yeah.
in this new edition.
I mean, obviously people are going to run it without him, but I think as soon as you get even to like 500 points, it's Thranduil Legolas, like almost every time.
Yeah. So going to number three. Oh, the Army of the White Hand. 70 games, but only 28 unique players. We got 46 wins here, 23 loss, and one draw. Average points in a win, 720. Average points in a loss, 686. So there's some discrepancy here. Pretty solid at most of these. About 50-50 record into the death, fielding a loss in Fog of War.
Surprised by Fog of War. With Grima, you choose Grima to keep alive. There's 5 points, and surely you can make him touch whatever your terrain piece is. Obviously, you'll be showing your hand at that point, but you just kind of have an advantage off the bat. So kind of surprised, but I guess you're not killing other heroes that easily.
Yeah. You're not killing other heroes that easily, and they're probably killing a lot of your heroes. So they're probably going to get their target.
Yeah, this is the one where you get all the objectives, and
Mhm.
now there's leader objectives too,
Mhm.
or general objectives.
And breaking, I think, as well is now in
Yeah.
or no, it was always in this one. And like I guess it depends on how you build it. Like if you just go for like a bajillion hobos in this, then maybe you don't break. But if you go for like a more scout based route or you throw in a lot more cav, then maybe you do end up breaking a lot more than you think.
I mean, even if you go hobos, they're only D3, right? So you're gonna
Yeah, but
still melt to strength 3 shooting or like even semi like fight 4 hordes, right?
how often do you break like 70 models? Well,
D3, it's like Goblin Town. They're
it's
a little
true.
faster. But yeah, true. There is some buffer there. But you can see the power of Grima in like Reconnoiter, destroy the supplies. Hold ground, I guess I'm a bit surprised, but they do have the flaming brands. So if they
Mhm.
can stack a bunch of those guys in, it's
Yeah,
like pseudo dominant.
like that and domination as well.
But also having Crebain in the list too
Hmm.
helps with those
Which
scenarios.
should, yeah, it'd be big for Reki as well.
Yeah.
Like you can't stop Grima from getting off. Like you just can't unless you have a wizard to kill
Even
him.
then, can't you just put him in the non-wizards warband and run him off on turn one?
Can you run
Yeah.
off on turn one? You just
Yeah.
like walk on, walk off?
Yeah,
You
you
move
can.
onto the board. So yeah, it's like that Simpsons gif, in and out.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah.
basically no reason for you not to do that, I guess, like immediately.
If they have
Because
a
like,
wizard, definitely. If they don't, you could hang out and cause
but
some
like if
problems for a little bit. But yeah,
I yeah, but that's only if you're gonna end up fighting close to your opponent's table edge anyway, because you don't want to wander him up like to the middle of the board and then have to run 4 turns back.
yeah. I'm
So
just thinking maybe like stop one march or something, or keep them from
yeah,
marching on
yeah,
turn one.
that's
But yeah,
fair.
you don't go to the
That's
middle of the
fair.
board. You
Yeah, yeah, that
dip
makes
out
sense. I
immediately.
see.
But yeah,
Yeah,
destroy the supplies though seems like, how do you lose destroy the supplies unless they have a caster?
destroy the supplies. Basically, you need 4 guys on each objective to
Yeah,
Yeah,
block them out. That's crazy.
wild. Oh, because then he can never get his base into contact with it. I see. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're
But
12
even
models
then,
down.
because Saruman still has command, right? Or blast or whatever. Like Saruman just gets close enough and like gets rid of one of the guys, and the agreement goes and burns it. Yeah, yeah, that one would be really hard to defend. And then not to mention the Crebain as well.
Yeah, that might be the key thing because we did talk about like the muster of Isengard, which is also a very solid list with like Saruman and Grima, but they don't have the Crebain. So your only shenanigans there is kind of Grima.
Yeah. And well, I guess we haven't talked about Saruman's craziness as well in this
Yeah,
list.
yeah,
The Age of
Basically,
Mythology god powers.
yeah.
like a free trebuchet shot anywhere on the board, essentially. Why not?
And having move for a turn. I mean, in reconnoiter or destroy the supplies, anything else where you just
Yeah.
it's just
You
pretty
just get
nasty.
so much board pressure if you
Yeah.
can like call a couple marches.
So you might need more than 4 models to block an objective. So one of them can be struck by lightning at any
Yeah.
time.
Oh yeah, you just do that.
Yeah.
Maybe kill like half of them. And then there's so many ways for you to destroy. That's wild.
And so I was playing a game of Hold Ground, and you know what's nasty? I hope this doesn't become the meta move, but calling the slow winds or gale winds or whatever on the turn that you're coming onto the board is just it's disgusting. Because if you have a big warband, you could barely fit on like anywhere. So yeah, there's not much decision making there. It's just literally trying to get on the board. And if you have
Hope you
something
roll
like a
ones.
Mumac or something like with a massive base, I don't know how they're going to rule it, but it doesn't seem like you can even come on the board. Because if you have
Oh,
movement, do you have enough movement to fit your base on the board?
no, you don't.
That is nasty.
Yeah, it's like rolling a one. Like, it's
Dude, that's
disgusting.
so funny. I never thought about that before.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Oh my God, that's awesome. Oh, that's wild. Yeah, so like what else is like that? Maybe like the catapult troll, I guess, is on a huge base, I think. Maybe Stumpy. Is his base 3 inches wide? Yeah, maybe you could get some of the trolls on, but that's super weird. Oh, that's super weird.
It's really good. All the spells that you can do are really good.
Yeah. And I think you can't might down to a 1 now too, right? So you
In Maelstrom, yes.
yeah, there's nothing you can do about that, which is wild. Unless you just roll the natty 1.
I guess the having the 3 inches of wiggle room now on the board edge is at least nice for that on Maelstrom.
Yeah. I think otherwise
Yeah.
it would be literally impossible for most
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah. Yeah, for any warband like of 10, like 12 models plus.
So I guess the other thing to note here is that there's a good almost 40 points of discrepancy between the average wins and losses. So it seems like you do need to play kind of above 700 points, likely even 750 or 800 for it to be more successful. Is that surprising to you guys?
To me, that says you're getting Saruman and at least 2 captains and like filling out the warbands.
You can kind of hoard out because you have to take Saruman. So I think at lower points you're just not getting to hoard out. So I think you're struggling because you have to spend so much on Saruman. Not struggling, but not doing quite as well. I played it at I think 600, and I was wishing I had more models and wishing it was a higher points game. Just feel like you kind of need to mitigate because you don't have any good fighty heroes or anything. So it's just nice to at least have a numbers advantage, which you don't. I think you struggle to get a numbers advantage at like 600.
This makes sense more than what we saw for muster, where it was opposite, where the losses were higher points than the wins.
Hmm.
No, it makes sense. I guess as good as Saruman is with like the army bonuses, like the actual profile got nerfed, so he's a bit of a tax, right? So you do want to fill out so you don't break with a D3 horde. Just from I guess keeping my eye out on the scene, like here and there, there's been a few tournaments where this has placed quite well. So I think this resonates, and this is going to be a heavy hitter for the next little while.
Yeah. Do you think that's a function of just the army bonus being so good and just getting numbers?
Yeah, I mean the current scenario pool is very very good for numbers. Like there's no scenarios that punish having taking a horde, so that helps. And then yeah, the army bonus is just I think arguably the best in the game. And then also Grima is god tier, so you know you got three reasons right there.
Yeah, Grima's ridiculous now. I don't know what they were thinking, but I'll be happy when I play it.
No counterplay is fun, you know,
Yeah,
for you.
it's a blast. Yeah.
All right, going to number two. We have the Blackgate. 70 games, 45 unique players, 27 wins, and 43 loss. Average points in a win, 633. Average points in a loss, 639. So essentially the same. And yeah, it hasn't really done so well. I think the only scenario that they're fielding a positive win rate is hold ground.
Is that because you just can start on top of the opposition and you just start killing stuff?
This one kind of surprises me because on paper,
Well,
it's not a bad army.
no, because but hold on, hold ground you can start extremely close to the enemy, and domination you can start extremely close to the enemy. All the other ones you start further away. I think they're just getting shot off the board. They're getting shot too much where it doesn't make a difference.
But
Like
they're taking Moranins, right? It's D6, and I believe you can get the troll drum in this one.
You do get a troll drum. Mhm.
interesting. Maybe people just aren't taking the drummer.
Yeah, that's why it kind of surprises me because it seems like it has the tools, at least more so than a lot of other armies to not get shot at. But yeah,
Yeah, this one surprised me too. Seems solid. I mean, especially with the troll chieftain, the leader. He's stats are amazing. I mean, he's fight 8 and has strike.
I wonder if it's breaking a lot in a lot of the games. I don't know.
one, I guess, theory, which is probably wrong, is that from what I saw in the last edition, the people playing Black 8 were typically more newer players. So maybe that could also skew the stats a little bit. Maybe the more experienced players are playing some of the more, I guess, spicy stuff like Army of the White Hand.
Yeah, and I guess similar to Menace Tirith, it's something people get early, and yeah, like you said, new players was pretty accessible. But
Yeah. And I haven't seen the ring wraith on Fellbeast in this one. Looking at the photo here, it is an option. Not sure if it's a good one, but
I think I'm gonna assume most people go Chieftain, Mouth of Sauron, and then second Chieftain.
you can go like Moran and Captains.
Yeah, yeah, but that's what I mean. It's like I don't think the Ring Wraith is really a serious option until you get to like maybe 800 points, 700 at least.
But the issue is what? The ring wraith's one might? Or
Is
does
it?
it have more in
I
that
think
one?
it might be
It's
the two might one,
it's the 2 might one. Yeah, it's the beefy one.
but it's
Or
still
the
just
beefiest
like
one.
stuck at fight 5. If you want to like throw it on the Fell Beast, is probably not worth it.
The to the death stats are a little rough. We have 3 wins, 13 losses,
Ooh,
14 players.
Yeah, you get rid of that, and it's almost 50-50. The overall win rate.
well, that is interesting though.
Yeah.
To the death is a bad one for it. Huh.
The chief is scarier now with like the hurls, I think, and fight 8.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, his stats are hard to beat with much of anything. I mean, other than a Balrog, I guess. because even like Sauron, I don't know, you're both going to hit fight 10, but not that you want that matchup, but you're also spending 150 on yours and a million on Sauron. So I just think he's really good for what you get for him. So yeah, again, just kind of surprised.
Maybe he's getting Gwahired.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the same points cost, right? So, all right. Any predictions for number one?
I have one, but
You
I'll let
know.
someone else guess.
What have we not seen yet? I don't think it's going to be dwarves. Maybe a soup lift, maybe, but maybe Battle of Five Armies.
I
Okay.
think it could be another Rohan. We only have one Rohan.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's true. So, number one, drum roll, Minas Morgul.
Oh,
Oh,
never mind. Of
So,
course.
so by a big margin, 99 games in the database with 61 unique players, 35 wins and 62 losses, two draws, average points in wins, 619, average points in losses, 662.
That's interesting. I would have thought it'd be much closer to a 50-50 win-loss, not like favoring the losses so much. But everybody is hyping the crap out of this list, so maybe it's just the fact that it's a bunch of people going in, trying it once and not learning how to play it and just going, this is bad.
I mean, on paper, the army bonus is just gross. Like orcs getting Blades of the Dead is crazy. But I do think there is a surprisingly big like learning curve to this. I think people are right in their assessment that it's a good army because I think there was just the GBHL 100 that was won by Minas Morgul. I think a 6 game tournament in the UK. So it obviously can perform. People aren't wrong about that, but I guess I guess the surprising thing is that it's not just a point and click army, if you will.
To the death, I guess, kind of makes sense as one of its worst ones because it just kind of has to run at the enemy. And it depends on the build, but if you have a lot of D5 in there, you like what you probably do, it's going to get shot up D5, D4 if it's the back rank. So
Yeah, that was the only thing I could think of for it not doing great is maybe you're very tempted to not take Morannons because the army bonus and getting the most out of it. So maybe you're taking a bunch of D5 and D4 and getting shot to death. But this is the one I hinted earlier. Surprised me a lot. Better.
Surprised you in the win rate or
Yeah.
oh, okay. Yeah.
but even like recon, because this is a common list where you take at least the Witch King on the Fell Beast,
Hmm.
and that's like a dominant three thing who's worth like 3 points for that if you can get the triple and then a hero as well, so you can get him off the board fairly reliably.
You also have the drum in this list and you get decent numbers. So I personally would not want to play against this in Reconnoiter. I think I agree with Andrew, though, that it really comes down to people being probably a bit too greedy because I think the right way is to have some Morannons in the front line, not only from shooting, but also like the strength 3 armies that are quite prevalent, like the men armies and also the elf armies.
And like the difference, because there's strength 4 anyway, so like a lot of the times you're still going to be wounding on 5s against a lot of things, so it doesn't, you're not losing out on a lot of damage output there.
Yeah.
I don't have an explanation for the win-loss ratio and those stats, but I can see why it's number one, as in being the most played. Just reading the army and seeing the army bonuses, the Blades of the Dead thing. I don't know. It seems like a fun army to play. So makes sense that everyone want to try this.
Maybe it was 61 people's first game of the new edition and they hadn't learned things yet and did horribly.
They might have lost to people playing also their first games.
Yeah.
What's a little bit interesting is the points seem to be lower in the wins. So you would think, I guess, with the Witch King on Felbeast being like the option in this list that higher points they would be really good in, but the Witch King is like the only must take here. And then after that, it just goes orcs or captain. So maybe it doesn't even scale that well. You could get good numbers at low points already. I know we reviewed the Into the West tournament in the UK, and that was 450 points, and they did well there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's like a lot of those other ones where you've got one kind of expensive first thing you take, and then after that you're kind of choosing between some C plus things, and I guess the more of
Yeah.
those C plus things you have to take, the less well you're going to do.
It doesn't scale well into higher points, at least with the heroes, right? You're getting wraiths that have 1, 10, 1 or captains. That's like really your options. So once you get past like 2 captains, it's yeah, and then like above 600, 700 points, you're going to start getting a lot of things that you don't have enough answers for.
What's given me nightmares about this list, even before playing it, which has probably stopped me from playing it, is Legolas doing a triple shot sharpshooter on the Witch King and sniping him the first turn. Even if he doesn't go down the first turn, like every single turn, he just has like a direct shot. And, Legolas is super popular. So it definitely has its weaknesses. So I can see why it's copped losses. But I think it just one of those super skewed kind of armies where if you come up against a good matchup, it's going to be really tough to deal with. But yeah, it has some really bad matchups too.
I think this doesn't like events that are going to be good versus evil. I think you want to go up against other evil lists that are full of orcs or wildmen or whatever, because like you're going to be wounding on 4s probably against a lot of those lists. Whereas if you're going against good army lists, you're still going to be wounding on 5s most of the time, which isn't as great. And they're probably going to be winning more fights because the good armies are higher fight value.
I will say it does feel good wounding the Iron Hills on 4s with the Witch King around. Oh, actually, no, the
Oh no, that
Harbinger
does
doesn't
still
affect it.
it's still
Yeah,
5s,
yeah,
still 5s. But even then, like when
still
you're
pretty
used to
good
6s
against
by
Iron Hills.
4s and now it's 5s, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, yeah, that's fair. Any thoughts on the list?
Interesting, there weren't a lot of Hobbit lists showing up there. I think there's just halls, right? That was it.
Yeah, and
That's strange.
no War of the Rohirrim list.
Yeah, that's also interesting.
I
Mhm.
guess people are still like painting them up or whatever.
Right.
Yeah,
Still
Yeah.
assembling.
yeah.
Also, not all of the heroes have models released.
Some of these games people probably played before even the books came out officially. I
Yeah.
mean, I know I played a game before anything was officially out. So.
War of the Rohirrim stuff is probably getting overshadowed because usually when you get a launch of new stuff, everybody's like, oh my God, new stuff. But the problem is everything is new now.
Right.
And
Yeah.
everybody's going back to their favorite army, being like, how is my favorite army changed? What's my
Yep.
new favorite army going to be? So it's kind of like washing the initial push of like War and Rohan stuff or War of the Rohirrim. That's what it's called.
The last video that we did, we saw a lot of Eagles and Dale. I don't know if I expected to see either of them on this list, but I'm a little bit surprised that we didn't see at least one of the two.
Yeah, I was curious if it was a points level thing, like you only see them at lower points. But I actually ran a test at like under 600 to see how the top 10 most played changed, and Lurtz's Scouts made it in, Kirith Ungol, Garrison of Othilion, and Usurpers of Edoras. Those made it to the top 10, but yeah, still no Eagles, surprisingly.
Hmm.
Maybe a lot of people don't have enough Eagles for a full army from the last edition, and
Well, they're just
I'm
not
sure that's
reporting the
going to
wins.
change. Yeah, yeah. Speaking of which, a fun stat I thought: 61% of the matches that got reported, the winner was the person who reported the match, like so the first person to. So
Yeah.
you can take what you want from that. I'll take that. Real winners report their matches, but it's probably more that the kind of people who win are the kind of people who are keeping track of that kind of thing. But
I think it would be cool, like once we get more tournaments being logged directly in there. I know the TTS tournament TOs that I was talking to, they said they're going to be adding all their tournament stats every month. So some good data.
yeah,
Good resource. Well, that's a good resource and a bad resource because people run a bunch of random bullshit in TTS events
yeah.
because
Maybe I'll
they
put like
can.
a digital flag on tournaments so we can see what's doing better on the internet and what's doing better in real life.
Yeah.
But it definitely would be interesting to see how this compares to like a year from now after we get the rest of the army lists and stuff coming in and like the full range is back. Be curious to see which ones it's like stay up there with these higher usage rates and win rates and stuff.
Honestly, I feel like all these stats are going to probably change like month to month, whether
Yeah.
the new book comes out or not, just because like everyone's still figuring things out, and there's probably some sleeper armies that people aren't even aware of yet.
I have a feeling that a lot of it's going to become a lot more points dependent for certain armies. You'd notice that last edition, but I think it's you're going to notice a lot more this edition where it's like, yeah, 400 points, Eagles do amazing, or 450 or whatever. But then, at 600, it's Minismore or Reclamation or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, with so many armies having fewer options than before, I think the ones that kind of cap out at higher points is higher. Like we talked about
Yeah.
with a few of those armies, it's like, well, you only have 2 named heroes you can even take. So after that, you're
Yeah.
Yeah.
taking trash.
Yeah. And like those soup lists, like Battle of Five Armies, Men of the West, Pelennor, like at 700, 800, they're probably going to become like much more dominant.
Yeah.
Yeah, any 1,000-point tournament, those are going to be like
Yeah.
killing everything.
The viewers, let us know what kind of stats that, we should be looking at next time.
Yeah, there's fun stuff in there. Not everyone attaches their lists when they report their match. You can just do the faction of you and the faction of your opponent, but we do have hero win rates and things like that. So there's a lot of fun potential videos to be had about that.
Yeah. Very exciting.
Thank you to all our viewers for watching. Please let us know which armies you expected to see in the top 10 and which ones that you were surprised didn't make the top 10. And thank you, Andrew, for coming on to the show today to talk about some stats. See you next time.